Hey everybody, Jobbin from the Time Pals here. Just wanted to give a shout out to my partners over at Legendary Supplements and the Legendary Legion. Their Crack and Intense Focus Blizzard Mojito flavor is something I've been using all week to focus on my work and get it done quickly and efficiently. It is a nice, cool, citrusy blast and provides a nice, clean energy that focuses on mental clarity as opposed to physical energy. So no crash, no jitters, and the benefits speak for themselves. I definitely suggest you try it, and we have a code for you to try at checkout. Just punch in Time Pals.
Hey, this is Mike Underscore of the Time Pals. This week's mini episode takes a quick and honestly shoehorned spooky look at the sometimes dirty and always odd world of pro wrestling, especially when the opponent is death itself. I've mentioned it in some of our earliest episodes, but I actually trained as a pro wrestler at a wrestling school called East Bay Pro back in the mid-2000s. It took about a year and a half and about 4 or 5 concussions, a pinched nerve in my elbow, and a torn ligament in my foot before I realized I was terrible at it. But before we get into any of that, I did want to bring up my guest host. It's John. He doesn't go by Jobin anymore because he told me no, and is once again taking over from Brandon Turner as being the most hated of my Time Pals. So John got a brand new contest. I mean, you can thank him. It's kind of his vision.
Yeah, first off, I'm happy to take the mantle of most hated, arguably most chaotic on the team from Brandon. I'm fine with that. Also, just the ideas that I was pitching by you recently about, us doing some sort of fun physical related commercial, and you just leading in like, I'm awful at wrestling. Now I'm concerned about it.
Well, here you'll find out why I'm concerned about it, but you'll it's still, I can still do it. But I'm always like that one little eyelash hair shy of man, this is the one that's gonna kill me, isn't it? I came out of retirement like Murtaugh and Lethal Weapon. Yeah. I'm not getting 4 sequels. This shit's gonna end.
Yeah, go out in a blaze of glory on a bouncy house. But yeah, so we've got a contest going right now, just kind of a dual 500 followers on Instagram, and at the same time. Because the prizes, 2 of the prizes, as the post mentions, I lost the 3rd prize. I'm not sure where the 3rd Simpsons related prize is anymore. But there are 2 Simpsons Treehouse of Horror prizes and a mystery comic book prize to tie to our Treehouse of Horror episode. So it's a dual purpose giveaway. It's on Instagram. If you go look at the Time Pals Instagram and check out the pinned reel, it should give you all of the information you need. It's going to run from now through, I think I said the 1st, whatever next Friday is, the Friday after Halloween.
That's right. I think
that gives us time to post this and then post the Treehouse episode and then kind of go from there. But there is one other thing that I figure I might as well throw out now that I'm thinking about it, which is mid-November. There's a charity called Heroes for Heroes that's going to be having a comic and pop culture memorabilia auction for charity. And the Time Pals donated some stuff to that. So we'll be doing separate posts regarding that after this contest is over to help hype that giveaway up and hopefully get that shared about and make it a successful fundraiser.
Well, talk about Heroes for Heroes. What exactly is Heroes for Heroes?
So Heroes for Heroes is actually... it's kind of a separate group. It's an Instagram comic collector and seller who goes by Bronze Age Nerd. He put this together with the idea of, raising money for charity, and it supports an organization. He kind of works with Comics Curing Cancer on one hand, and then a veterans charity organization that basically helps veterans, with kind of a myriad of things in civilian life post deployment and getting out of the military. So it's really cool. The footwork he's putting in is amazing. He's got artists donating all sorts of stuff that are making me wish that I was independently wealthy. And then, like I said, we donated a bunch of things. A bunch of other folks from the kind of Instagram comic book community donated a bunch of things. So just keep an eye out. It'll be getting hyped up by us and many other people over the next, 3 weeks or so.
That's awesome. Actually, that's actually really cool. The downside is I ignored you once you said you had another group aside from us. Just
Oh no, I've got
Brett Baker used to be
many
part of
groups.
this too.
Many groups. The only thing I need to be a bigger whore is to just spread my asshole on Instagram or on OnlyFans as well.
Whatever gets a download.
Hey man, I'll do it. I'll do it. You want feet pics? Let's do it. You give me a follow, I'll give you feet pics. Fuck it.
I always thought that was overrated. I've heard that as a joke a million times, and then I've actually like read articles about people going like, "Yeah, I tried to sell my feet on whatever, I got like $4," and I'm like, "Oh, there's not that many people that actually."
Oh no, dude, it's nuts. I know one person who basically makes their own salary again doing foot pictures, and like people will be like, "Hey, I'll give you $100 to go to Lucky's and buy a small cake, and then send me pictures and video of you stepping on the cake." And she's like, "Yeah, fuck it, it's a $5 cake," and it's yeah.
It should be like death-defying acts. You know what I mean? It should be like painting one like Spider-Man, then chasing it through the streets of New York. It should be something more interesting. Like paying somebody $100 to step on a cake. I believe you. Trust me, I believe you 100%. But that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, I know. You wish it was something more.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was say like because I don't want to detract too much from your theme, but I will say that your theme of wrestling's biggest opponent being when the opponent is death. I know it's not botches per se, like I told you, but I do have a kind of my dumbass story of the week. I know I told you that I got one of those continuous glucose monitors for my diabetes.
Yes.
And so a coworker, I was talking to her about it, and she's like, "Oh, I've got some of the stickers you put on your arm to help it stay on better." I'm like, "Oh, great." So she brings me this box, gives it to me at work. I bring it home, go to put the thing on the other day, and I open it up, and I'm like, "Oh, these are just alcohol swabs." Maybe she mixed up what she had.
Yes.
But I'm like, "Hey, dude, I need alcohol swabs. I have to sterilize before I put the thing on." So put the monitor on, week goes by. I'm like, okay, time to take this thing off. Oh, I'll use one of these alcohol swabs to
Tell me it's nicotine patches. Tell me it's the nicotine patches.
No, I'll use one of these alcohol swabs to help get the sticky off, right? So I'm doing it, and I pull the thing out of my arm, and I'm wiping it down and all that stuff. And the thing is on there really good, so I'm picking it up. My fingers are getting the sticky stuff from underneath it all over it. Right. And as I'm finishing up, I'm just like, oh my God, my hands are like sticky. Like my hands could almost stick together at this point, and my arm too, all this stuff. So I think nothing of it. Oddly enough, my girlfriend had suggested I couldn't get it off. Soap, nothing else could get it off. I used olive oil, which I think is the most like WAP thing I could possibly do. I'm Italian. I can use that word. It's fine. So I was like, all right, smudge olive oil all over my hands to get it off. So, okay, great. Get that done. Put the new one on. Week goes by. Same thing. Take the next one off. Do it again. Everything's all fucking sticky. I feel like, this must be what it's like when Spider-Man jerks off. Like, what the fuck is going on? Everything is sticky. And then later that week, I happened to look at it. These are fucking adhesive wipes.
Oh, you were adding glue to
I
your
was
own body?
wiping glue, like industrial strength medical glue, all over my arm and hands, and then going, why is it sticky?
Oh my God. And then you tried to rinse it off with olive oil.
And I tried to rinse it off with just soap and water. And yeah, so that's my dumbass moment. That's my botch of the last couple weeks.
Why is there not a vat of taffy I can jump into to counteract the olive oil I just used? Like that's
oh my God,
freaking crazy. So the fortunate part is your botches didn't result in any injuries. All of my botches was like, oh, here's another concussion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Light sensitivity, here we come. But for this one, I wanted to avoid like deaths that occurred incidentally due to like faulty equipment or poor planning. So I'm not going to talk about Owen Hart.
I was going to say Rip Owen Hart.
Yeah, no, I wanted to avoid murders outside of the ring, so no Bruiser Brody either. If you're a wrestling fan, they're great stories. If you're not, they're fascinating stories anyway. So with this one, with the exception of the botch story you just told me, I'm more or less about botches. I'm more about looking at three wrestlers who you may not have known have actually killed a guy. What's nice is you stopped being a wrestling fan a long time ago, right?
Yeah, like right around the conclusion of the Attitude Era. So what is that, like 2004, 2005, something
That's
like that?
about right. Yeah, that's about
Okay.
right.
Yeah, that's about when I got out of it. Yeah, I found hentai, and that kind of distracted me.
I no, I don't want to get off topic, but I didn't. When I found hentai, it was because one, because I'm a pervert, but two, I don't really mean that, but I do. But two, it's a there was like a bunch of video games from a site called JList,
Yeah,
and
I actually know that
right?
website.
And I don't know how it popped on my radar, but people were posting pictures of J-list games. I thought they were animes, and I'm like, oh, that's crazy. And then somebody said there was a video game you got to see boobies, and I was like, down. And
Yep.
then the first one I downloaded was fucking atrocious. Like I didn't know if
Oh
they were
yeah.
scratching kinks or not. I'm just like, somebody made this, and it's here in the United States. Like, how is this possible? Like, you could tell like it was a game where it should have taken place in like maybe sophomore, junior year of high school, but they had to bump it to college. They're like, it was about a character who I don't remember if he makes a wish or something, but
That's
he
always
becomes
what
a
it is. They find
girl.
a genie. Oh God.
Yeah, and he has to now live the rest of his like X amount of school year having to romance everybody at this college, quote unquote, wink, wink. And then I don't remember how it ends because it was dirty for me, and I'm just like, okay, I don't want it. My computer is now covered in viruses, clearly. So like, I don't, and two, I don't want to be on a list, so we're just gonna delete this now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll never forget that. Then of course, me being me, back then, still scrolled J list like on the regular. I bought like like I bought the umbrella that was in the shape of a samurai sword.
Oh yeah.
I bought right. I bought the T-shirt that says "Looking for a Japanese girlfriend in Japanese." All that shit that nobody would buy. That's what I had.
But it didn't actually say that. It said like chicken soup or something.
You know what's funny? It actually did, and I know that because somebody in our class who was Japanese asked me if I bought that on purpose. And I said, "Yeah, I know. I thought it was funny." And then she's like, "It actually says what it says." Like then
Oh.
she was just like, it's almost like, "Oh shit, no way!" Like truth in advertising. And then, but it was the kind of thing too where I'm like, "Oh, if it really does say this and people are reading this, maybe I don't want to wear this. It's a little embarrassing." And then I went out and I bought like wrestling shirts for the next 20 years. So clearly my fashion sense is not where it should. But yeah, just to start. So the first one I want to talk about is the Great Khali versus Brian Ong. On a whim, do you know who Great Khali is?
Yes, I do.
Cool. Okay, cool. I won't have to explain very much, but if anybody doesn't know, one thing about Vince McMahon is he always hearted big lugs. He calls it like the airport effect, where if you didn't know anything about pro wrestling at all and somebody walked in like the Undertaker getting his bags, you would immediately be in awe at the sight of that guy, just because he's so massive. You want to know what that person does, that kind of thing. The other thing Vince said he always liked was big, talentless lugs who could draw internationally.
Yeah.
And Khali is that guy. He had the same syndrome as the Big Show and Andre the Giant. So he was about 7'1", but billed at 7'3", legitimately, 400 pounds of pure muscle. If you've never seen his face, he used to get compared to the Easter Island heads, but he looks closer to like a boxfish where the bones like flare out like a tent. To keep his eyes and for real, to keep his eyes and nose from running down his chin. It's frightening. He's a frightening man. Khali trained at a facility in the Bay Area called All Pro Wrestling, which at the time was one of the bigger facilities. There, he was wrestling a young man named Brian Ong. Ong, from what I could tell from photos, looked a lot like me, but with actual talent and muscle mass. And he entered APW's boot camp. So I've done the boot camp thing before. Essentially, you're just bumping on your back, bumping on your stomach all day long, destroying your body as much as you can. And then you have to do workouts in between. The idea is very stupid. It's if we're trying to toughen you up and we're going to get rid of anybody who doesn't want to be here, right? But they've already got your money. So really it's almost behoove of them to get rid of you, you know, because they've
Mhm.
already got it. Like I can train 7 people better than I can train 15. You know what I mean? So like there's almost a whole like, hey, we just suckered this cat into just giving our money. He's not going to be strong enough and let him go. But Ong, give him all the credit in the world, was doing well from what I could tell. Unfortunately, during one of those sessions, he wrestled Great Khali, and during the wrestling match, Khali did a move called a flapjack, which is basically where your opponent hurls you into the air, and then you are supposed to take a bump on your stomach.
Oh yeah. You basically do a full spread so that you're spread out, minimizing the
Yeah,
hit. Yeah.
exactly. And you were a jujitsu guy. Same concept is I'm trying to take all the force out and spread it throughout my body.
Yeah.
That way you don't have an injury. Probably took a lot of those because I know for me, when I was training, if any move you did, you got hit with it as many times as possible. So if there was a class of like 20 and they were learning a suplex, you got hit with 20 suplexes before you were even allowed to throw one. So it used to suck. So I don't know how many were in that boot camp, but I guarantee you, Callie was this giant guy that you did not want to take that bump for. Unfortunately, during one of those moments, Ong, instead of landing flat, over rotates or something, and he lands right on his head. Does not die there. Gets up, goes to see an APW medical rep, and they clear him and tell him to continue wrestling. So Callie, I don't think he meant to do this, but he calls for a spine buster, which is almost the same move, only you're landing on your back.
Mhm.
So Ong, being all screwed up from that first one, hits his back and pops the back of his head. So not only did his head on the front side, hit his head on the back side. Due to the medical trauma, he collapsed and he would die at the age of 27. Eventually, APW would be found APW would be found responsible for not finding Ong with enough medical evaluation and for basically just throwing him back in the ring for no real reason.
Mhm.
Family would be awarded about $2 million, but
Oh wow.
Callie himself would get off scot free. And yeah, he had an 8-year career with the WWE, fought the Undertaker, and I think he has a win over him. And
Oh
he's
wow.
basically, yeah. They saw dollar signs. They basically were like, we're gonna make this
Oh yeah,
guy.
he's gigantic. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and he's I think he's Indian by national. I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the
He
thing.
actually he used to be an Indian cop too.
Yeah, is that right?
God, could you imagine that guy coming at you? Because those Indian cops don't fuck around. They'll just pull out a stick and start beating you.
Oh my god! So like speaking of crazy jobs, you remember Scotty Too Hottie, the guy that they would do the worm?
Yeah, yeah.
He became a firefighter.
Really?
So little Scotty Too Hottie, who would spell out his name or not spell out the word worm while doing the caterpillar, became a firefighter. He became a hero.
I mean, hey, good for him doing something, you know?
I can only imagine what they'd make him do on the truck though to haze him. It's got to be hilarious. Heading to different directions, making him spell out the word west or north. I mean, that'd be hilarious. But no, yeah, some of these cats do crazy stuff.
I mean, yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's not like you have a truly real world applicable resume coming out of professional wrestling and just being like, great, what do I do now?
Honestly, straight up, I left pro wrestling school thinking to myself, well, at least I'm tougher and been through a bunch of injuries and shit, and makes me a better man. All it did was it makes it harder to remember names and dates. That's all. That's all I came away with.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is why you're listening to this podcast right
Yeah, exactly. That's why as many times in the many episodes I said I'm never gonna talk about pro wrestling again. When we had to do a very quick one and went, hey, let's talk about pro wrestling.
now. Yeah.
That's always a winner, right? So my there's only 3 of these, so don't worry. So my
No, I'm
second
fine. I love talking about this stuff, man.
well, it's different for me. It's different, right? It's
Yeah.
not like let's remember the Attitude Era or some shit. But yeah, so number 2 is a wrestler named Mitsuharu Misawa. So this one is probably reaching back for you. I don't. Have you ever heard of him?
I have not.
So Misra is one of the reasons your favorite indie wrestler started doing things like tiger suplexes and roaring elbows, just straight up. He was one of
Okay.
the top stars during the tape trading era, where back then that's where I was spending my money. So like if there was a guy, I'll never forget, probably all 100% illegal, but his name was Wild B. Brown's Wrestling Tape Emporium, and you sent him money orders, and he would send you copies from this collection of like 5,000 tapes. But he had things that were legitimately rare. Like he had before, the WWE basically release stuff on DVD to not DVD, but release stuff on their network just to fill time.
Yeah.
He had the first ladder match filmed in their ring, which was between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, and it looks like a almost like a how to not a how to, but like a very early version of what he ended up doing and making it famous later. But there's all kinds of crazy stuff. Like they had an event called the Big Event, which had it was basically filmed on a shaky cam, like you were watching something that you shouldn't be watching. But it's like all these old Jack wrestlers, your Ricky Steamboats and stuff,
Oh yeah.
just beating the shit out of each other. And it's entertaining because back then there was still a little bit of that what you're seeing is real. So they're going to town, and Misawa was part of kind of that generation.
Okay.
He wrestled for a federation called All Japan Pro Wrestling.
I am familiar with that. Yes.
Okay, cool. So they're basically up against New Japan, right? It's basically
Yeah.
WCW versus WWF. Their style, if you're not familiar, it's called King's Road. You might actually like it. So King's Road basically it had some of the American drama, but instead of like all the angles outside the ring, the characters themselves wouldn't be showcased until they got inside.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's really neat. And because they wanted to have something quote unquote more legit, they implemented things like judo and early Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like they wanted the moves to look real, like you were really trying to scramble, you were really trying to wrestle as opposed to, stomp, punching and stomping the mat and shit like that. Really cool. In theory, everybody had the same look in general, like because you were supposed to be like legitimate competitors, right? You're
Mhm.
not gonna wear a bunch of flashy shit, so solid attire. Everybody had black hair of the '90s. It's like half mullety, giant arms, but no outrageous gimmicks. But once the bell rang, that's where you kind of show. Yeah, that's where you could shine. Like this is my character. This is that character without saying.
Okay. No promo cutting, none of the stuff that we see
Not
now. It just
really. Yeah, not yeah, because the idea was we were doing an actual contest, and I'm going to treat it as if this is a real fight, right? So you're not trying to do a lot of stuff. It's funny you mentioned because like there's a legendary Japanese wrestler called Giant Baba who hated submissions, so everything was super like hard hitting because
Mhm.
he didn't want to see you like so not to break kayfabe, but
Yeah.
whenever you see like a chin lock or something, it's a rest hold, right? You're
Mhm.
trying to catch your breath. You're trying to do that kind of stuff. I did a lot of them because I was always gassed. So my finishing move was a knee bar, which is a rest hold.
Niba.
But in any case, you can kind of get why I didn't make it to the show. In any case, Misawa was like one of those guys where he learned a lot of that. So instead of doing anything to rest, he would just focus on moves that hit the head and neck and then expected you to hit him with the same amount of psychotic force. Like that was his rest hold is you're going to hit me really hard so I can sell like I'm dazed because I'm kind of dazed. So his tapes were legendary, basically was the point. Wrestlers have copied him over the years. His Tiger Driver was copied and has a million variations. Emerald Flosion, a million variations. The Tiger Driver itself became so famous that recently AEW has a whole storyline where like the move is banned and somebody keeps threatening to use it. That kind of thing.
Ah,
Yeah, really cool.
interesting.
The downside is being really cool and wrestling that style ended up being his undoing. 2009, he was wrestling in a tag team between himself and a really radly named Go Shizaki and even more radly named Bison Smith. Sato. Um, Smith was in the ring when Misawa died. He says in a podcast that Misawa hadn't been feeling well the night before and tried to push himself through because he's Misawa, the show must go on, and all that other
Yeah.
shit. In figuring like I'm a tough man, right? Match never aired, but Misawa essentially, from what people said in the few people that have recorded video of it, got injured and rolled outside the ring. Bison Smith assumed that he had a head injury and in wrestling fashion, still did a move on him. Like, okay, well, how am I going to get out of this? And it does happen. Like, how am I going to get out of this? I know. And he gave him a back suplex. Well, once Misawa landed, he never got back up.
Yeah.
Wrestling is funky like that. Everybody knows something is wrong, but they're still in character. So instead of just stopping the match, like everybody's pacing, everybody's like, you know what I mean? They're looking like they're still going to fight. But in reality, you look in their eyes, they're fucking terrified. Misawa was evaluated. Turned out he snapped the base of his skull, couldn't breathe under his own power. And he's such a massive guy that he basically went under cardiac arrest and died.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, insane. A YouTuber recorded the entire match, but to kind of show you the style of the Japanese people, refused to post it. And instead, he just opted to post the parts in the beginning and then the parts after the death to kind of show like this was him coming in. Hey, this is him going out, basically.
I appreciate that. I find that, I mean, not to, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? It's the honorable thing to do.
It is.
And I'm not using the term just because it's Japanese and it's
No, I
honor,
felt you.
but like, you know what I mean? Like,
Committing
it's the honorable thing to do, and I can appreciate that very much.
I'm not gonna play a gong after you say it.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
You should do it anyway now. just said that.
So yeah, but Misawa, obviously his impact on the sport is huge. A lot of wrestlers showed love afterward, either through ring gear color schemes or busting out a suplex or something that he used to do in his honor. CM Punk even wrote his name on the very next Raw. So yeah,
Cool.
if there's a dude who, for you specifically, if you ever were like, hey, let me look up some highlights, I would check him out. I would check him out. He's his early 90 work, especially. You are watching somebody who is still trying to sell the idea that this is the 1970s and people think it's real. So,
Interesting. Like, so he's really trying to. I mean,
those moves are nuts.
Yeah.
You'll see him bend his own body in so many. He's not one of those like, I'm just gonna give you the move. I mean, he took a lot of punishment.
You have to earn it.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, like, because like when I was looking up Misawa, I do remember those days where like clearly something went wrong and we had to make something up. Like I remember for myself, there was like a running gag where they would always tell us, they would say, Mike, don't die, because I would sell and sell and sell, and I would be so freaking exhausted bouncing around that any move I would call, I would do the most like lazy version of it. And I would get so tired. Somebody would eventually say like, oh, Mike's going to jump to a clothesline. And then son of a bitch, I would jump to a clothesline. Cause I'm just like, I'm done. I don't care. What's your move? A twisting moonsault in the air? Fuck that. Hit me with a boot. Boom. Yeah. Mike's down.
You gotta do like the Diaz brothers, cardio first, man.
Yeah, I didn't get the memo until much later in my life. Holy shit! I will say this though, begin breaking kayfabe a little bit. The hardest part, aside from obviously bumping and sucking, was running the ropes. Like they tell you when you first run the ropes, it's gonna hurt like a mother because these are metal cables wrapped in tape.
Yeah.
So they are not fucking kidding. The first like month, bruises all along my hips and just underneath my armpit. Every fucking day. And then one day I hit the rope expecting it was going to kill because it always does. Felt nothing. Like they're absolutely right. It's like your body just goes, okay, I guess this is a thing now. So we're just going to make it like not hurt anymore. I would still get bruises there, but like it never hurt again. It's fucking incredible.
That blew my mind when I found out what they actually were. I didn't know. I mean, I couldn't tell you what I thought they were, but it wasn't just steel cable,
Yeah, right.
And then when I found that out, I was like, oh, shit, that sounds so painful.
I was very fortunate to wrestle in 2 different styles of rings, technically 3, but I don't count the third one. But yeah, so I wrestled in a style of ring that was the early 80s, mid 90s ish WWE style ring, where it's one giant metal spring in the middle.
Oh.
Metal rods and then wooden boards with a thin mat over the top. Suck. Anything around the sides of the spring would hurt like a mother. Like I don't care what the move was, but if you could hit the middle of the spring, obviously all that tension, all that stress would be absorbed by the spring. So it was great. So like you could take like a superplex, and if you aimed in the middle of the ring, wouldn't feel it at all. But if you like screwed something up and gave me like a back suplex on like the corner, I would be dying. Like it just sucked. And then I wrestled a WCW style ring where it's very weird. It's like these long wooden slats over metal, but these slats bowed. So if you were looking at, and then it had like a mat on top, but if you're looking at it dead on, it looked flat. But in reality, it actually like bounced naturally. So it was kind of neat. It was one of those ones where I don't know how many places use that because it was one of those like, it didn't sound as cool. You know what I mean? Like, but in terms of safety, I would bump on that thing all day if I wanted to. It's almost like a bounce house. Like eventually when we film, it will likely be my very last video.
Hey, I'm the one who has to go through the table, man. So,
it's easier than but yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
But it's one of those things where I'm just like, okay, that's probably the closest I could explain to somebody is if you imagine putting wooden boards on top of, like bounce houses, they're curved, right? Like putting on top of that and then landing on it. It's obviously way more exaggerated, a bounce house, but it's that feeling of like, oh, this is actually kind of nice. Like that metal spring one, fuck that. I don't even know. That sucked. Anyway, so I only got one more for you.
Yeah.
This one, I guarantee you will never guess that this man is technically a murderer, but
Oh,
it is
God. Hold on. Well known what, WWE person?
still wrestling now. Very famous. I'll give you like a minute because there's no way. There's no fuck.
I'm trying to think. I feel like I need one more hint. Yeah, what is he? Is he a heavyweight? Would he be categorized as a high flyer? What are we talking here?
If I tell you, it'll give it away. That's how famous he is. Still wrestling today. Still very famous. If you know his history, his son is wrestling right now in the same promotion.
Oh, Rey
Mysterio Jr.
Rey Mysterio
Jr. One of the most beloved wrestlers of all time.
No way.
Straight up killed a guy. So it was Rey Mysterio Jr. versus a wrestler named Perro Aguayo Jr. In my opinion, obviously the most surprising wrestler murder ever. But the way he killed him is insane. So Mysterio, obviously the most famous luchador on the planet now, fuck Mil Mascaras and anybody else you can think of, it's him. Yeah. What makes it surprising is that when you watch the match, because it is online, the move looks like it has no impact. So anyway, back in March 2015, Mysterio was in a tag team match with a wrestler named Extreme Tiger against Aguayo and a wrestler named Manic, who I think is played by a Filipino wrestler named TJ Perkins, I think. During the match, Mysterio goes for a routine setup for where he does a head scissors in order to get to the 619. So the 619, if you don't remember, is the one where the wrestler is basically draped over the middle rope. Mysterio, it's an amazing feat of strength, comes across and swings his entire body between the top rope and the middle rope and hits the guy in the face with his legs. Mm-hmm. It's amazing to see. It's honestly, when he started doing it, I'm like, this is incredible. And he does it like every day.
Yeah.
In any case, Mysterio goes for the head scissor. Aguayo, for some reason, does not fall in the middle rope, but basically rolls out of the ring. It looks like miscommunication or confusion. It doesn't look like that's the move that like screwed him up enough. But he goes back inside, and then Mysterio gives him what looks like a very pitter-patter routine drop kick around the shoulders to push Aguayo into the ropes. So Aguayo hits the middle rope and looks like he's going to do the 619. But then he doesn't move. He's just draped. So Manic goes to the second rope, and they're going to do a spot that Rey does all the time, where he's going to do the 619 and hit both people at once. Mm-hmm. You see Manic look at Aguayo and start trying to like subtly shake him, and he does not move. Rey goes for the 619, misses completely. Perkins moves out of the way, and Aguayo, because he doesn't move and because Rey is safe, purposely misses Aguayo. Like something is wrong. Mysterio stops, tries to get the ref's attention, and because it's wrestling, instead of stopping the match, like, well, we need to finish this match right now. Manic gets himself pinned, match is over. So at the time, the assumption was, okay, Aguayo's knocked out. There's actually a really famous clip of another wrestler named Conan trying to check on him, and he's like shaking him by his goddamn neck. It's so funny because it's darkly funny because like now that we know what happened, it's like, oh, come on, you know what I mean? Like he was not getting out of there. Yeah, Aguayo was not getting out of there. Eventually, paramedics do arrive. They realize he's dead, and then they basically determine the cause of death is a spinal trauma from the result of Rey Mysterio's dropkick, propelling Aguayo into the rope with such speed that he gets whiplash and fractures his own neck.
Holy shit.
That's nuts. I didn't even know that was a thing. So
I can't even, I mean, like I've seen, you know what it almost makes me think about was, because I still forget if this is real or not, but you remember Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, the movie from the 90s where, what was it?
Oh, no, he really fought a ghost over his son.
Oh, okay. No, but when he fights, I think it was Bolo Young still or whatever other, very large person they found, and he like jump kicks. Well, who was playing Bruce Lee then? Oh, Jason Scott Lee. Jump kicks him in the back, and then basically breaks his spine. And Bruce Lee's all like, until that moment, I never considered that something like that could happen, totally ruin you in that way. I was like, oh, that's just over dramatic for that movie. Like, but
so
holy shit.
Not to kind of put myself in this, but part of the reason why I love talking about this because I have some experience. I got one of the worst whiplashes of my entire life on a botch move. When I talk about botches, again, it's a miscommunication, and it's because I'm also heavily concussed all the fucking time. So during the miscommunication, My opponent is a guy named Ben Johnson, who I think is 6'6" in reality, but billed as like 6'9". Right? He has me up. He calls for a. He's very safe too, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
He used to do an elbow drop from the top. This big ass. He's a big, huge black dude. He used to do this elbow drop from the top, where I would see all I would see is him, his shadow, and then just total darkness. I would feel like no pain because like he was so good at absorbing all of the impact that
Yeah.
it essentially felt like a pillow. Like it was fucking amazing. Compare him to another wrestler I used to wrestle all the time named Leon Akuza. Akuza was shorter than me. His core, they called him lead ass. He could barely touch you with his ankle doing like a high flying move, and it felt like a gunshot. It was so goddamn heavy. I don't know how, but in any case, back to Ben. Ben calls for a Simone drop. I don't hear it Simone drop in my head. I think of it it's going to be what's called the FU or the AA. So I'm prepared to sell this thing by popping onto my back. Ben is going to push me backwards the way the drop is supposed to work. I'm about to push off of him. He realizes what I'm going to do in midair and tries to catch me, but you can't really quite make it. And the side of my head hits the fucking mat with all the force you would think, and whiplashes back. So here's the crazy thing. I'm dizzy, I'm confused, but we finished the match and I'm done. I'm like, okay, cool, we're done. I have to run a 10K the next day.
Oh,
This is how the power of adrenaline. I'm running the 10K at about maybe 3/4 of the way through. My neck and my arm seize up where the impact was, and I'm running like half cradling myself. Now, because it's me, I'm like, yeah, look how fucking badass I am. But in reality, is my body's just like, oh, we should not be doing this.
yeah.
And we're going to hit the brakes on you right now. But yeah, so and the only reason I mentioned that is those whiplashes. I mean, they're no joke. Like the adrenaline hit and lasted me throughout the entire day into the next day. And then I felt everything seized, and I'm like, okay, this is not a good thing. So obviously, Mysterio after the death said a win's a win essay, and so I'm just kidding. Obviously, Mysterio said, was devastated. Right?
Oh, of course.
The Aguayo family made him a pallbearer because they all, clearly this was
Oh
never
yeah,
supposed to
they
happen.
know that it was an absolute accident, and I'm assuming that I feel like a lot of the wrestlers that come from Mexico up here are close and have either worked together or have had family work together, and they kind of look after their own. So this was probably
Oh
one of
yeah.
those things where, I mean, they were probably pretty close, all things.
Mysterio actually did the whole funeral without his mask on, and his wife had a really neat quote. But he said he wanted to go to the funeral as a human being, it's not as a wrestler, and that's very different. Because I mean, I just told two stories where somebody's dead and everybody's got to be like, "Okay, we're finishing this match, right? Here, lay down."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the show didn't go on for Ray. Ray said, I'm a human being, and so was Aguayo. They obviously forgave him. The quote that I read was, they told Ray not to feel guilt. This was in God's hand, and they understood. And then they challenged him to a cage match. Now they said this is in God's hands, and they understood. And that for me was like the most like heartbreaking thing, because you're always, and I know it's not ballet, but there's so much like shitty
Yeah.
wrestling. You know what I mean? Like you think to yourself, like, this is not, who's gonna get hurt? It's a fucking kick to the back. You know what I mean? That was not even meant to be the main move. It was meant to push him forward. He just went with so much force. So when you see the move, and if you are curious, and when you watch it, you're gonna think to yourself, that's it? That's the thing that's gonna take this kid's life? Totally nuts. Yeah, I don't have any. I was gonna do a whole like, are they dead yet game, but I figured that was gonna be a little too dark for even a spooky Halloween episode.
And
But we'll save it.
also, it would probably be one of those things where
The answer is yes every time.
I don't, and I don't know enough. So then,
Yeah.
like I'd keep guessing and guessing and guessing, and it would just get more and more sad each time because we're still
So,
going trying to guess who has died.
so spoiler, they all are.
Yeah.
But Jake Roberts still alive. I don't know. How the fuck does that happen?
There's got to be a Keith Richards in every industry.
Dude, you have no idea. And he does yoga now. Like he's happy, and that's if there's a God watching, that's where you take him.
God.
That's the ultimate warrior. Yeah. So I want to thank you, man, for being on the show. Thank you again for all your hard work getting the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror thing going on.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, it's amazing. So far, you have 500 followers.
Yeah, we got 500 followers on there, man. We're doing it. We're moving along.
Yeah, we want to thank everybody again. I don't know how I'm going to edit this, but we'll edit with me saying thank you to everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is. Honestly,
don't even edit it. We'll just go in raw.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying, man? Like, I don't see fucking Nickel or Dom doing anything.
except for all the clips.
Except for all the clips and like
everything that I post.
Yeah,
everything that I post on Instagram
and
is
having like the
something that
most
Dom
popular
did.
episodes between the four of us
Right.
every fucking time. This thing might get 30. Yeah. We'll see what we get.
They're like, oh, it's those two assholes. Where's the guy who idolizes Snyder?
All right, man. I got nothing else unless you want to plug anything else.
No, man. Just kind of the usual. Follow us. Share with your friends if you like the stuff that we do. We're just trying to, we could have picked anything for our midlife crises, and this was it. So right along with us.
I already own a smoker. This is it.
Yep.
For Underscore and the rest of the Time Pals. See you next time.